The story begins with Colonel Darcy visiting the residence of Mrs. Featherstone, who was busy playing cards at that time. Darcy came there upon hearing rumors that someone there was infected with the zombie virus. Therefore, he brought several carrion flies that could detect rotting flesh, and unexpectedly the flies stuck to the face of a nobleman, Mr. Kingston, indicating he was already infected with the zombie virus. Quickly, Darcy grabbed a knife below him and stabbed it into Mr. Collins's head, because in this movie, killing a zombie required destroying its brain. It turns out, not only was Mr. Kingston infected, his daughter Annabelle was also exposed. Now, how did this zombie virus initially spread? We go back to ancient times when the British were engaging in global trade with their colonies. In addition to reaping huge profits, they also experienced the spread of the zombie virus, which turned thousands, even tens of thousands of British citizens into fierce zombies. Therefore, the government built a huge wall and also a canal as deep as 3,000 meters to protect the city of London. Meanwhile, many Londoners armed themselves with martial arts skills from Japan or China to survive the zombie attacks. Returning to the story where we now see the Bennet family with their beautiful yet unmarried daughters, Lizzie, Jane, Lydia, Charlotte, and Kitty. That's why their mother is so eager to send them to the party to be held tonight, hoping they will meet a wealthy nobleman at the party. Jane immediately caught the attention of Mr. Bingley, who was smitten at first sight, while Lizzie seemed a little distracted by Colonel Darcy. Unfortunately, Lizzie accidentally overheard Darcy speaking unfavorably about her. Hearing this, Lizzie was naturally upset and hurried out to calm her emotions. Suddenly, Mrs. Featherstone, who had turned into a zombie, appeared behind her. Fortunately, Darcy arrived and finished her off. Before they could recover from the shock, several more zombies appeared, causing panic, but not for the Bennet girls. They pulled out weapons they always carried and quickly disposed of the zombies. These girls were regularly trained in martial arts, so they were no longer afraid of facing the zombies. Mr. Bingley, witnessing this, was naturally even more enchanted, including Darcy. The next morning, Bingley sent a letter inviting Jane to his place. Jane eagerly prepared her horse to go. Unfortunately, on the way, she encountered a zombie that scared her horse away, and when she tried to shoot the zombie, her pistol jammed and exploded by itself, injuring her palm. Fortunately, Jane was still able to kill the zombie with the knife she carried. But a terrible and sad sight was seen in front of her, a female zombie holding a baby, which had also turned into a zombie. And soon, Lizzie came to Bingley's residence, where Darcy was also present to take Jane home. Apparently, Jane was found fainting after killing the zombie woman, and now she was feverish. It seemed that the wound from the pistol explosion in her hand was what caused this. A few days later, when Jane's condition improved, a distant cousin of theirs named Mr. Collins came. Mr. Collins came there to marry one of the Bennet girls, because the Bennet family had no male heirs. At that moment, Mr. Collins enthusiastically talked about Lady Catherine, a noblewoman famous for her prowess in killing zombies. In that town, the tales of Lady Catherine's feats had become legendary. When Mrs. Bennet asked Mr. Collins which of her daughters he would choose to marry, Mr. Collins immediately pointed to Jane. Unfortunately, Mrs. Bennet said that Jane already had a suitor. Afterwards, the Bennet girls, along with Mr. Collins, set off for their aunt's house in Meryton to attend a dance party hosted by Mr. Bingley. On their way, they encountered a carriage that seemed to have just had an accident. From inside the carriage, they heard pleas for help, and suddenly a zombie appeared. They quickly dispatched the zombie and continued on their journey. Upon arriving in Meryton, they met Lieutenant Wickham, with whom Jane engaged in extensive conversation. Wickham eventually accompanied them for the remainder of the journey to their aunt's house. Not long afterward, they crossed paths with Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy. Mr. Darcy, seeing Wickham, appeared displeased and quickly left, followed by Mr. Bingley. Jane, noticing this, inquired about any issues between Wickham and Mr. Darcy. Wickham revealed that he and his father once lived in the Darcy family estate, and Mr. Darcy's father treated him like a second son. However, after Mr. Darcy's father passed away, Wickham was expelled from the household by Mr. Darcy himself. Naturally, this led Jane to form a negative opinion of Mr. Darcy. That evening at the party, another zombie attack occurred, but the zombies were easily defeated by Jane, Mr. Bingley, and Mr. Darcy. Several days later, while walking in the woods, Lizzie encountered Wickham again. He took her to a church, which turned out to be a gathering place for zombies. However, these zombies were docile because they had not tasted human brains. Wickham had discovered a way for zombies to coexist with humans by feeding them animal brains, preventing them from turning into violent creatures. Back at home, Lizzie learned from Charlotte that she was to marry Mr. Collins. The next day, during their meeting with Lady Catherine, Lizzie came across a painting of Lady Catherine fighting a zombie, which she found amusing. It was then that Lizzie learned Mr. Darcy was Lady Catherine's nephew. Lizzie had also brought Wickham to meet Lady Catherine, hoping to discuss his vision for a zombie colony similar to the one at St. Lazarus Church. However, Lady Catherine rejected the idea, viewing zombies as nothing more than monsters to be eradicated. That night, unable to sleep, Lizzie walked alone in the garden for some fresh air. Suddenly, she prepared her knife upon noticing something. It turned out to be Wickham, who informed Lizzie that Mr. Darcy had influenced Mr. Bingley to distance himself from Jane, believing the Bennet family to be fortune hunters targeting wealthy men. This revelation made Lizzie angry and offended. Consequently, when Mr. Darcy confessed his love for her the following morning, Lizzie rebuffed him, accusing him of separating Mr. Bingley from Jane. Hearing this, Darcy honestly confirmed because at that time, he indeed thought of the Bennet family in such a way. Lizzie, of course, became even more upset, and an unavoidable argument ensued between them. Afterwards, Darcy left the place, leaving Lizzie with a broken heart because, despite being very upset, she actually had deep feelings for him. Later, Lizzie received an apology letter from Darcy for the misunderstanding and for causing Bingley to distance himself from Jane. Darcy also explained that everything Wickham told Lizzie was not entirely true. Darcy didn't expel Wickham from his family without reason. He did so because Wickham squandered his father's will and continually demanded money from him after his father's death. Darcy also suspected that Wickham might have somehow caused his father to become a zombie, forcing him to kill his own father. Meanwhile, Darcy was on the outskirts of London, which was being attacked by hundreds of organized zombies, as if they were being controlled. This forced Darcy and other soldiers to fight desperately to protect London. If they failed to defend the borders and the zombies crossed Hingham Bridge, London would be overrun. Lizzie soon received a letter from Wickham, claiming he had kidnapped one of her sisters, Lydia. Recognizing the seal on the letter, Lizzie immediately knew Lydia was taken to St. Lazarus Church. Without wasting time, Lizzie and Jane set off for St. Lazarus Church, needing to cross Hingham Bridge to get there. The guards at the bridge initially forbade them from continuing, fearing they wouldn't be able to return if the zombie attack reached that point. However, Lizzie and Jane were adamant about continuing their journey. Upon reaching the border, they found the area in chaos, with the bodies of zombies and soldiers scattered everywhere. There, Jane reunited with Bingley and helped him fight off some zombies, as Lizzie did with Darcy. Afterward, Lizzie told Darcy about their mission to St. Lazarus Church. Hearing this, Darcy immediately said that the church had been completely burned down 5 days earlier, making it unlikely that Lydia could have survived the fire. Then Darcy told Bingley to blow up Hingham Bridge at 5 p.m. to prevent the zombies from entering London, while he secretly went to St. Lazarus Church alone to save Lydia. Darcy lied to Lizzie about the church's destruction to keep her from risking her life by going there. But Lizzie eventually learned that Darcy had lied and hurriedly followed him to St. Lazarus. Back to Darcy, who had already reached St. Lazarus and managed to find Lydia locked up. Unfortunately, Wickham was secretly waiting for him, and suddenly the place was filled with zombies. Without wasting time, Darcy immediately took Lydia away from the place. Once outside the church, he instructed Lydia to quickly return to the border on her horse, while he would confront Wickham. They eventually fought amidst the onslaught of zombies. Meanwhile, Lizzie, who was almost there, saw Lydia being chased by a group of zombies and immediately drew her sword. At the same time, Bingley prepared to blow up the Hingham Bridge as ordered by Darcy, but he was waiting for Darcy and the Bennet girls to return. Soon, Lydia arrived at the border, exhausted and weary. Back to Darcy, who finally managed to stab Wickham with his sword. Surprisingly, Wickham was fully transformed into a zombie yet. He hadn't consumed human brains, and therefore still retained some sanity. Fortunately, just as he was about to finish Darcy, Lizzie arrived to help him. Without wasting time, they hurried back to the border as quickly as possible before the bridge was blown up. and fortunately they both made it safely, although they suffered injuries from the explosion. The couples eventually married, witnessed by Lady Catherine, who gave her blessing to their marriage. However, after the wedding, it appeared that Wickham, who was still alive, led hundreds of zombies, preparing to attack them. The movie ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.